Consistency is the silent force behind every great achievement in human history. It doesn't shout, it doesn't seek attention, and it rarely feels glamorous. But day after day it works in the shadows, laying bricks where others only dream of castles. While most people wait for the perfect moment, the right feeling, or a surge of motivation, those who understand the true power of consistency don't wait. They begin, and more importantly, they keep going. They understand something that many overlook. Greatness is not built in a moment of brilliance, but in thousands of moments of quiet, disciplined action. People often confuse success with grand events or life-altering opportunities, but in reality, success is built upon the small decisions that no one sees. It's in the early mornings when no one is watching. It's in choosing to keep going when the excitement has faded. It's in staying committed when the results are slow and the rewards are invisible. That's the beauty of consistency. It asks you to show up not because it's easy, not because it's fun, but because what you're building is worth it. Every drop of effort may seem insignificant on its own, but together they form an ocean of unstoppable momentum. In a world obsessed with speed and overnight success, consistency stands as a quiet rebellion. It whispers, "Slow is fast." While others burn themselves out chasing quick wins, the consistent person moves forward inch by inch, knowing that steady growth always beats sudden bursts. A tree does not grow overnight. A mountain is not shaped by a single gust of wind. And a legacy is never written in one day. The difference between those who dream and those who achieve is not talent, not luck, not intelligence. It's the courage to keep going long after the initial fire has burned out. Consistency requires something deeper than motivation. It calls for conviction, because motivation is fleeting. It fades when life gets hard. But conviction stays. It holds the line when the path is steep, when doubts creep in, and when the outside world tells you to stop. The consistent individual doesn't rely on feeling ready or inspired. They act because they have made a decision, an internal contract that they will not break. That decision becomes their anchor. It keeps them grounded when storms rise, and it becomes the quiet strength that separates them from the rest. There's something powerful about the person who shows up every single day, not seeking recognition, but simply honoring their purpose. They don't wait to be in the mood. They don't need applause. Their commitment is enough. And with each passing day, they become more than they were before. Their actions compound. Their effort accumulates. While others wonder why success hasn't found them, the consistent person is building step by step without needing to see the finish line to keep moving forward. Eventually, the world takes notice. Not because they made a grand entrance, but because they never exited. They become the person who lasted, who endured, who stayed the course. And in that persistence lies the secret that few ever understand. Consistency is not just a strategy, it's a philosophy. It's a way of living that transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones, not through magic or chance, but through unwavering commitment to a vision greater than the distractions of today. Success belongs to those who choose to honor their goals long after the excitement has disappeared. It belongs to those who understand that every small action matters, even when it feels like nothing is changing. Because in truth, everything is changing. Every time you choose to show up, you are moving forward, even if you can't yet see the progress. You are strengthening your character. You are becoming more reliable, more disciplined, more focused. You are writing a story that will one day speak for itself. Consistency may be quiet, but its results are loud, and those who practice it never stay invisible for long. Habits are not created by wishing, planning, or setting goals. They are created by repetition, by doing the same thing over and over until it becomes a part of who you are. Consistency is what turns effort into instinct. When someone commits to a course of action and sticks with it daily, their mind and body begin to adapt. The resistance they once felt begins to fade. The hesitation disappears, and soon, what was once difficult becomes automatic. That is the power of habit, and habit is born through consistency. The strongest individuals aren't necessarily the ones with the most talent or the highest energy. They are the ones who have built the right habits and repeated them long enough to make them effortless. These habits become the scaffolding of success. Without them, people rely on feelings, on moods, and on circumstances. But with strong habits, success becomes a process, not a question. The world doesn't reward occasional effort. It rewards reliability. Habits are what keep people grounded when life becomes chaotic. A person who has built consistent routines for growth, health, learning, or discipline doesn't get thrown off course easily. They might slow down, but they never stop. The habit carries them. And that's the difference between someone who gets stuck and someone who keeps rising. Most people give up because they're still trying to decide every day whether they feel like doing the work. But consistent people don't waste energy on that decision. They've already made it. Their habits take over. Their structure becomes their freedom. This is why small daily choices matter more than the occasional big push, because small actions, when repeated long enough, become systems, and systems create sustainable success. To change your life, you don't need to do everything all at once. You just need to do one thing every day without quitting. That one habit becomes the seed, and if you water it with consistency, it grows. It becomes easier, deeper, and more powerful with time. Eventually, it doesn't just change your day. It changes your character. And once your character changes, so does your destiny. All of it begins with consistency. The simple decision to keep doing the right thing, even when no one notices, even when it feels like nothing is happening. Because over time, everything changes. Discipline is often mistaken for something a person is either born with or without, as if it's some genetic trait reserved for a chosen few. But in truth, discipline is built, not given. It's not something you start with, it's something you develop through action, through repetition, through daily decisions that slowly but surely rewire your mind. Every time you do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it, you are training yourself. You are teaching your body to obey your will. You are teaching your emotions that they are not the master, you are. And the way that teaching takes hold is through consistency. Without it, discipline remains a concept. With it, discipline becomes a way of life. There is no secret formula. It's simple, even if it's not easy. Show up, repeat, stay steady. Discipline is earned in silence and proven over time. Most people wait for motivation to act, but the consistent individual knows that waiting is the enemy. They understand that motivation may spark a fire, but only discipline keeps it burning. And discipline is a result of habits formed by relentless repetition. Each act of showing up, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard, becomes a vote in favor of your stronger self. Every time you override the temptation to quit, every time you choose growth over comfort, you are chiseling discipline into your identity. Eventually, it no longer feels like effort. It becomes who you are. The things that used to feel impossible start to feel normal. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. And you got stronger because you stayed consistent. Discipline is not built in a single day, but it is destroyed in a single decision to give in. That is why consistent people protect their routines. They guard their non-negotiables. They don't negotiate with weakness. They understand that every skipped step matters, and every kept promise counts double. Through repetition, they become unstoppable, not because they never struggle, but because their foundation is solid. They don't rely on emotion, they rely on structure. And structure, built through consistency, becomes the bridge between who you are and who you're becoming. Discipline, in the end, is not about willpower. It's about building a rhythm and refusing to break it. Confidence is not a gift given to a few. It is a reward earned by those who consistently keep the promises they make to themselves. Every time you say you'll do something and follow through, you strengthen a bond with yourself. You begin to trust your own word. You begin to feel a sense of inner reliability that no outside opinion can replace. That's where real confidence is born. Not from praise, not from validation, but from integrity. And that integrity is only possible through consistency. When you show up every day and do what you said you would do, even when no one else is watching, you build a kind of self-respect that cannot be shaken by failure, rejection, or criticism. You start to walk differently, speak differently, think differently, because deep down, you know you are someone who can be counted on. In a world where most people break promises to themselves daily, skipping the gym, delaying their goals, avoiding the uncomfortable, those who keep showing up begin to stand out. But they don't stand out because they're trying to They stand out because they're rare. They operate from a different level of inner strength. And that strength isn't loud. It's not about being the most confident-looking person in the room. It's about being the most honest person with yourself. You don't need to pretend. You don't need to impress. Your actions are already speaking for you. That's what consistency does. It replaces the need for performance with the power of presence. You are where you are supposed to be, doing what you are supposed to do, and that clarity builds certainty from within. This kind of confidence is unshakable because it doesn't depend on outcome. You may fail. You may stumble. You may fall short of the goal. But because you've remained consistent, you know that those setbacks don't define you. They refine you. Your worth is not attached to the result. It's anchored in the effort. That is the gift of showing up consistently. You don't just become more capable, you become more certain. And when you know you'll keep going, no matter what happens, the world begins to bend to your belief. That's real confidence. The kind that no one can take from you because you built it yourself, one kept promise at a time. Momentum is one of the most misunderstood forces in personal growth and success. Most people think progress comes in big leaps, from massive actions or sudden breakthroughs. But real progress is built on momentum. And momentum doesn't come from occasional effort. It comes from consistency. The first few steps are always the hardest. When you're just beginning, everything feels slow, heavy, and uncertain. Results are invisible, doubt whispers louder than belief, but each time you show up and take action, no matter how small, you generate a little bit of energy. And the more you repeat that action, the more energy you create. That energy compounds. It begins to reduce the resistance. Tasks that once felt like a struggle begin to flow. Momentum, once in motion, makes the hard things feel lighter and the impossible feel doable. There is a unique kind of strength in those who build momentum through consistent action. They don't rely on huge victories. They rely on showing up daily, knowing that every effort adds weight to the wheel until eventually the wheel starts turning on its own. This is when the shift happens. You stop forcing yourself to move forward. You're pulled forward by your own rhythm. You stop needing motivation because motion becomes natural. That's the gift of momentum. It transforms effort into ease, chaos into clarity, and hesitation into speed. But none of that is possible if you don't stay consistent long enough to reach that tipping point. The truth is, most people never experience real momentum. Or they quit too early. They stop and start, never staying with one action long enough to feel the shift. But the consistent ones, the ones who grind through the early resistance, they are the ones who break through the wall. And once they do, everything accelerates. Progress becomes exponential. Doors begin to open. Opportunities begin to find them. Not because they were lucky, but because they kept pushing until the weight they carried started working for them instead of against them. That's the hidden magic of momentum. It rewards those who don't quit. But to experience it, you have to first be consistent when it feels like nothing is working, because that's when everything is being built. One of the greatest differences between those who rise and those who remain stuck is how they respond to boredom and delay. Consistent people understand something that others avoid at all costs. Boredom is not the enemy, it is the gateway. Most people chase excitement. They want every day to feel inspiring, every action to feel rewarding, every moment to feel like progress. But life doesn't work that way. Success is not a constant high. It is a series of quiet, often repetitive steps that slowly build into something extraordinary. The consistent person learns to find strength in the monotony. They stop needing to be entertained. They stop needing to be impressed. Instead, they start to master the art of doing the same thing over and over with intention and discipline. When others give up because it no longer feels fun or fast, the consistent individual keeps showing up. They understand that boredom is a test of maturity, of focus, of commitment. Great things are not built in moments of thrill. They are built in seasons of silence, in the hours where nothing seems to be happening, in the days when the only reward is knowing that you didn't quit. That's where consistency shines brightest, not when things are going well, but when they feel stuck. Most people abandon their goals in the valley, but those who endure the flatlands are the ones who rise above the rest. They don't need excitement to keep going. They don't need instant results to stay loyal. They've trained themselves to value the process, not just the prize. Consistent people are dangerous in the best way because they don't stop when the emotions fade. They keep moving when others rest. They build in the dark while the world sleeps. And when the results finally appear, everyone calls them an overnight success, not realizing how many mornings, afternoons, and nights were invested in silence. Mastery doesn't happen because you found the perfect method. It happens because you didn't stop practicing when it got dull. Consistency turns the boring into the powerful, and those who stick through the quiet days are the ones who ultimately own the loud ones. In the journey of growth, consistent people gain something far greater than immediate results. They develop clarity. Clarity is not something handed to you in the beginning. It doesn't come from overthinking, planning, or reading endless advice. It comes from action, more specifically, from repeated action. The more consistently you pursue a goal, the more insight you gain into what works, what doesn't, and what truly matters. Each day of repetition sharpens your understanding. With every step, you refine your direction. This is where most people go wrong. They wait for clarity before they act. But clarity isn't found in the waiting. It's found in the doing. Consistent people act first and understand deeper with time. They trust that truth will reveal itself not in a single moment of brilliance, but in the quiet pattern of progress. When you commit to showing up every day, even when the outcome is unclear, you begin to see patterns that others miss. You begin to hear what your own mind and spirit are really telling you. You gain feedback not just from external results, but from your own intuition. You start recognizing what aligns with your purpose and what doesn't. And this kind of clarity is powerful because it's not borrowed. It's not something someone told you. It's something you earned through direct experience. That makes it unshakable. People who lack consistency often live in confusion. They chase too many paths, abandon ideas too early, and constantly second-guess themselves. But the person who remains steady gains internal vision. And that vision is what cuts through noise, distraction, and doubt. Eventually, consistent effort begins to reveal the deeper why behind what you're doing. You're no longer just following a goal, you're being pulled by a mission. You no longer need constant reminders or external direction because you've become connected to something within. That level of clarity doesn't arrive on day one. It unfolds through repetition, through resilience, through the discipline of staying the course when things are uncertain. And the longer you stay in motion, the clearer your vision becomes. Consistency sharpens your mind, purifies your purpose, and aligns your effort with something far greater than temporary motivation ever could. Consistency also creates a powerful sense of identity. The more you repeat an action, the more it becomes a part of how you see yourself. If you consistently write, you begin to see yourself as a writer. If you train every day, you begin to see yourself as disciplined and strong. Identity is not something you wait to discover. It is something you shape through behavior, and behavior repeated over time becomes your reality. Most people try to change their lives by changing their thoughts, but without action, thoughts are fragile. They fade. What truly shapes identity is what you consistently do. The person who sticks to their habits, who honors their commitments, who doesn't negotiate with excuses, that person isn't just doing something, they are becoming someone. And that transformation is far more powerful than any temporary achievement. When your identity begins to shift, everything else follows. You no longer need to force yourself to behave a certain way because the behavior is aligned with who you are. It becomes natural. You don't have to battle yourself in the mirror every morning to stay on track. You know who you are and you act accordingly. That's why consistency is the foundation of lasting change, not because it produces quick results, but because it rewrites the story you tell yourself. And once that story changes, your actions become effortless. You're not pretending. You're not faking it until you make it. You've made it a part of who you are. And that's unshakable. The danger in inconsistency isn't just lost time, it's identity confusion. When you start and stop, break promises to yourself, and constantly shift directions, you weaken your own belief in who you are. You no longer trust your word. And that uncertainty poisons your progress. But when you stay consistent, even in small things, your identity becomes stable. You stop doubting yourself. You stop negotiating your standards. You simply act because it aligns with who you've become. That is the deepest reward of consistency. It doesn't just change your habits, your outcomes, or your circumstances. It changes you. And once you've changed, everything else becomes possible. Consistency builds credibility, not only with others, but more importantly with yourself. When people see you show up day after day doing what you said you would do, they begin to trust you. Your words carry more weight, your actions speak louder than any promise or plan. But even more critical than external trust is the internal trust you build. You begin to believe in yourself, not because of some fantasy or blind optimism, but because your actions keep proving your intentions are real. Most people erode their self-belief by constantly starting and stopping. They make commitments they don't keep, say things they don't follow through on, and create a pattern of broken trust with themselves. But consistent people take a different path. They understand that credibility is earned one day at a time. It's not something you declare, it's something you demonstrate. The way you show up for yourself becomes the way the world shows up for you. If you treat your goals as optional, others will treat your potential the same way. But if you treat your word as law, if you hold yourself to a higher standard, then others begin to recognize that discipline in you. They know they can count on you. And more importantly, you know you can count on yourself. That kind of internal credibility becomes a force. It gives you quiet strength. You don't need to talk about your plans, convince anyone of your value, or seek constant reassurance. Your consistency speaks for you. It becomes your reputation, your rhythm, your proof. This credibility compounds. Every day you show up becomes another vote of confidence in your future. Every time you follow through, you reinforce the message. I am capable. I am dependable. I finish what I start. And when the storms come, and they always do, it's that credibility that keeps you steady. You won't be easily shaken because you've built something real, not just achievements, but a record of reliability. In a world full of noise, inconsistency, and broken promises, the consistent person becomes rare and powerful. Because when people trust your consistency, they begin to trust your leadership. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. Another remarkable benefit of consistency is that it helps you outlast failure. Everyone encounters setbacks. Everyone faces rejection, disappointment, and defeat. But the difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck isn't the absence of failure. It's the ability to keep going through it. Consistent people don't avoid failure. They walk through it with open eyes. They understand that failure isn't the end of the road, it's part of the road. And they've trained themselves to keep showing up regardless of the results. That's the quiet power of consistency. It gives you endurance. It makes you immune to the highs and lows. It allows you to keep your focus while others are distracted by frustration or doubt. Because the person who keeps showing up eventually becomes the one who breaks through. Failure only defeats those who stop. But if you keep going, failure becomes a teacher. Every mistake, every rejection, every misstep becomes valuable feedback. And because consistent people don't tie their identity to results, they don't crumble when things go wrong. Their strength isn't built on perfection. It's built on perseverance. They use failure to sharpen their strategy, refine their approach, and deepen their resilience. Each time they fall, they rise with more wisdom. Each time they stumble, they reset with more discipline. And over time, they begin to move forward. Not because the path got easier, but because they got stronger through repetition. The world tends to reward consistency more than talent. It's not always the smartest or most gifted person who wins. It's the one who refuses to quit. When others burn out, the consistent person keeps moving. When others grow discouraged, they stay focused. That's how failure loses its power. It cannot stop someone who refuses to be stopped. And while everyone else is waiting for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, the perfect confidence, the consistent person is already in motion, learning, adapting, improving, because they know that success doesn't require flawless execution. It only requires relentless persistence. And that kind of persistence is born from one thing: showing up no matter what. Consistency also unlocks the power of compound growth, a quiet force that transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary outcomes over time. Most people underestimate how powerful small actions become when repeated without interruption. They want dramatic progress and instant transformation, but that's not how real success works. The most profound changes in life are not the result of one massive event, but the effect of small, repeated steps done with intention and discipline. When you do something every day, when you stay focused, committed, and patient, your results don't just add up, they multiply. What was once difficult becomes automatic. What was once slow begins to accelerate. That's the magic of compounding, and it only belongs to those who stay the course. Each time you practice a skill, each time you revisit your goal, each time you take one more step forward, you are building a foundation deeper than you realize. At first, it might feel like nothing is happening. It might feel like you're moving in circles. But what you don't see is the internal growth, the sharpening of your mind, the strengthening of your habits, the expansion of your capacity. That's what consistent effort builds. It doesn't just produce visible progress, it builds internal power, and then one day what seemed impossible becomes natural. What once required force now flows with ease. The momentum you've created begins to carry you forward, and your growth becomes exponential. The compound effect is not just a concept, it's a law of reality. It works in every area of life: health, wealth, relationships, mindset. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to be consistent. Because over time, consistency beats intensity. Anyone can give their best for a day. Few can give their best over and over. But those who do, those who show up daily, especially when it's hard, especially when it's boring, those are the ones who unlock the full power of compound growth. And by the time the world notices their success, it's already too late to catch up, because they've been building silently, brick by brick, while everyone else was waiting for motivation. At the heart of consistency lies something even deeper than discipline, clarity, or results. It is integrity. When you are consistent, you align your actions with your values. You live in harmony with what you say matters most to you. That alignment is what gives a person quiet confidence, not because life is easy, but because they are no longer fragmented. They're not pulled in 10 different directions by shifting emotions or fleeting motivations. They've chosen a path, and they stay loyal to it, not just when it feels good, but especially when it doesn't. That kind of integrity becomes a source of deep inner power. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it is undeniable. Because when your life is rooted in consistency, you begin to trust yourself in a way that no external validation can ever replace. This internal alignment creates peace. You no longer have to fight yourself every day. You no longer have to live with the burden of regret or the constant cycle of starting over. You don't have to pretend to be committed, you are. And that certainty frees your mind. It clears away the mental clutter and lets you focus your energy on the things that matter. Consistency is a form of truth. It's how you prove to yourself and to the world that your intentions are not empty. It's how you demonstrate that what you believe is more than just words. It's a lifestyle. And over time, that lifestyle becomes a legacy. Because the most respected people are not the most talented or the most charismatic. They are the ones whose actions match their values over time. The final reward of consistency is not just success, but wholeness. You become someone who no longer needs to chase approval, no longer needs to explain yourself, no longer fears the setbacks, because you have already won the inner battle. And once you've won that, the rest becomes strategy. You are no longer controlled by your feelings, your circumstances, or the opinions of others. You are driven by something greater, something anchored, something earned. That is what makes consistency one of the rarest and most powerful forces a person can embody. It's not just how success is built, it's how character is formed. And in the end, that is the ultimate achievement.